Yo, welcome, Pat, to the Weird Music Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Cam. Looking forward to chatting with you, man.
Hell yeah. So, Pat here is the manager of DIZGO, amongst a bunch of other really cool things that he's up to. We just had DIZGO at the winter workout here in Columbus, and they fucking crushed their set at the Bluestone. DIZGO is traveling with a whole crew now. Got, the homie Kendall on the cameras and all this shit. Pat, what's the 411 on the world of DIZGO right now, man?
Well, we just started off a really cool year, honestly. We have been kind of working towards building our markets into playing these bigger rooms and stuff like that. And I'd say this first leg of our tour that we announced and just finished up with was really exciting for all of us because we just came back to some cities and places that we're familiar with, but it felt like a whole new audience was there for DIZGO, and that it really showed us that these past couple years have been really paying off. So it's really cool to see everything growing. So that was really cool. Definitely starting off the year with some really cool shows, and we're definitely going into the summer now. Looking forward to a lot of really cool events and festivals that some of them are firsts for us, some of them are regular stops for us, but we're really excited. And like you said, we got a full crew right now between Kendall, doing photo for us on a lot of these shows, and our buddy Jambo doing lights, our friend Carlos, our sound engineer, and Troy from Cincinnati, who's been doing merch for us. It's really cool to have a solid little group of people to help us, make this the best package we could present DIZGO as. So that's really been probably the most exciting thing that we're kicking off this year with.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, DIZGO is red hot. The growth is definitely well-deserved. I love seeing these guys, playing to bigger crowds at bigger venues. And it's going to be awesome to see them at festivals this summer, like Summer Camp, right? And Peach.
Yep, Peach Fest, Dome Fest we're doing. A couple more we don't have announced yet.
Dome Fest.
Dome
Hell
Fest,
yeah.
Is a huge one for us. Peach Fest, both really huge for us. We've been working towards, moving towards that side of the country in general for a while. So it's definitely a big deal for all of us. We're really excited about it.
So for anyone out there listening, DIZGO, I'm sure you've heard the name. You may have even heard the music. You may be a fan, but I'm sure there's people listening out there right now who are just casually familiar with DIZGO. So, for those people, and even for the diehard fans, Pat, how about you take us through, what is that origin story of DIZGO?
Well, the band started 4 years ago now. April of 2016 was their first show. And the starting lineup was basically comprised of Pickle and Kevin, bass and keys and guitar and vocals. They have been playing music together since they were probably 13 years old. They're about to be 30, and it's been every week, every month kind of thing. They've been playing music together. They went to college together, were roommates, and threw house parties, and they started a college band called Elephant Quiz. And that was an experimental psychedelic rock group that they were just like a party band. They were a lot of fun, and they would play at the Bluebird and stuff like that because they grew up in Bloomington, and that's always been home court for them. And so those members in Elephant Quiz eventually parted ways after school and stuff, and the band kind of stopped playing shows together because it was, kind of just ran the end of its course. And around, I think end of 2015, beginning of 2016, I started hearing actually from my roommate Joe, who is really close with these guys, that oh, Pickle and Kevin are jamming again, and it sounded really good. And I was like, oh yeah, I'd love to hear some of that. And he played some music for me, and I still remember it like it was yesterday, and I was like, wow, this sounds really cool. And at the time, I had just started working at the Bluebird or promoting jam band shows and stuff there, and so I was giving out free tickets. I was, selling discounted tickets, trying to get a handle on all of our social media there, kind of like that job while I was in college still. And during that time, Kevin and I were pretty close. We'd go out to the bars pretty often and just, go out to shows or go drinking and stuff and hang out with some friends. And so we had a good relationship, and I barely knew Pickle at the time. And I'll never forget the day I met Pickle. Was pretty funny. I was like at my house, and my old roommate Zaim was coming in from like a long day at the lake, and he was like, "Oh man, I'm bringing some friends back to the house. We're gonna have dinner. We're gonna drink some wine, like watch some fish videos. It's this guy I just met, Pickle. You're gonna love him." And I was like, "Oh, I've heard about Pickle so much, but I've never actually like really hung out with him." And he came over with his dogs, and me and him bonded over some fish streams that we were watching that night. And it was like I'll never forget that day in particular. But about a couple weeks later, Kevin and Pickle approached me and were like, "Hey man, you want to come? Yeah, can we come over to your house and hang out?" And they mentioned that they were starting a new band, and that they were really trying to take this seriously. And before they even started playing shows or anything, they were like, "Hey, we kind of want a extra ear, and an extra hand, and some representation to maybe book us and manage us. And we know you have some good insight from working at the Bluebird." And I had also helped promote with Essential Productions at the time, and they were interested in basically helping them out, market themselves, get them some shows, and all that goes along with it. So I had heard the recording from Joe, like I said, and I was like, "Yeah, sign me up. I'm into it." At the time I was hungry definitely to get my hands on any kind of music industry work, so I was really excited for the opportunity. And about a month and a half, they played their first show at the Bluebird, opening up for the Main Squeeze, and the rest is a blur until we are right here talking on the phone.
Fuck. Man, that's a dope story. So that's like 17 years Pickle and Kevin have been playing together.
They have, it's not even an exaggeration. These guys have been playing music together for like over 15 years. And I mean, it definitely shows. If you've been to a DIZGO show, there's a good chemistry going on stage, and you can definitely feel that these guys have been playing music for a long time together and been writing music together for a long time. They have their own defined sound, and it's been really cool to be a part of that.
Hell yeah, man. DIZGO come a long way. I really do. I don't know, like maybe it might just be my like growing familiarity with DIZGO, or I don't know, but it definitely has grown on me a lot, like the DIZGO vibe. There's a lot of like Jamtronica kind of, options as a music listener. And after seeing him open for Pigeons and then at the Winter Workout, like definitely sold on this DIZGO trio here in 2020.
Awesome,
yeah. But honestly, man, as epic as DIZGO is, this is the Pat podcast, man. And so we're doing a little backstory for anyone out there listening. Weird Music helps out with Advocates of Change here in Columbus, which basically, we connect the music scene to like ways to support local charities. So for different shows, we have a different charity, and we raise money is we have this like collection of art that's been donated to Advocates of Change by artists over the years. And one like epic print that people just like are super interested in at the Advocates of Change table is a painting by Pat Milescu. And man, you've got a renaissance array of talents here. I'm really interested, man. Like, what clicked you out of being your average, normal, everyday, like go to school, work a 9 to 5, come home, live a normal life, into being this like live painter turned band manager, now like talent buyer at the Bluebird, like all this awesome shit. Man, like let's hear that Pat origin story, at least with the music scene. Like take me back to, those first few moments when music was kind of like indoctrinating you into the cult or whatever.
Oh yeah, definitely another series of events that I'll never forget. There for sure. I was always like really into music and art, and even in school, by the end of high school, I was like really into. I had just taken an independent study of art class, and I was like super interested in learning how to paint. I just kind of fell in love with it. It became just like a really cool hobby for me. And I was also obviously super into music. I wouldn't touch a canvas without music involved. And all of the music I was listening to is, Fish, STS9, Lotus, Humphreys, all these jam bands I've been listening to for years. And definitely inspired a huge. I mean, that was probably the reason I was so into art too. I mean, I always kind of throughout school would just doodle during class. I never really was too great at paying attention or anything like that. So naturally, that doodling just turned into me becoming more and more interested in art. And by the end of school, in that art class that I took, that really I'd say shaped. That kind of inspiration that I got for painting. I was kind of like, I think a buddy told me about Hyperion in like 2012, and that was definitely my first festival. And I kind of knew what to expect out of events like that. I've never been to one, obviously, so I'd say that alone was a huge eye-opener for me. I just went and with like a big group of friends, and I think Papadosio was like the headliner, and there was like just a bunch of local indie bands and like Ohio bands and stuff like that. And I remember bringing like my all the art stuff that I even had, and I was like, what, I'd love to paint outdoors to some music this weekend, And so that was kind of like where I got the spark or the motivation to do that at all. And I kind of fell in love with it for sure. I wanted to dip my toes into that even more. So the next year, actually I think it was that same year, that I met an artist, Tom Reed from Cleveland. And he told me, he was like, man, like you have a lot of talent, and if you're interested in doing this, I have a free ticket to the workout next weekend. And I was immediately interested. I said, yeah, I would love to go, and if you're into that idea, So I think the week later, I packed my car again. I went to the workout, maybe with one friend that I went to Hyperion with. And same experience, I went basically with the intent to like see some cool music, meet some friends, and paint my heart out. So I was really kind of new to the whole festival world or what was going on there, but it was one of those things, where you felt like you just fit right in. So over the next couple of years, I definitely kept doing that, and honestly, I credit that to like why I ever started working in the music scene in the first place. Because I was more interested in art at the time. But the more I went to festivals, the more I went to jam band shows, little venues, big venues, in-state, out-of-state, I realized obviously the thing at the end of the day that was most inspiring to me was the music, So I think 2013, I did the same thing, back-to-back weekends of Hyperion and Workout. Both of those, I'd say, were absolutely monumental in kind of influencing me towards working in music, whether I knew it at the time or not. I had gone to paint both events, and I think those were my first two events that I was like a featured artist or whatever. So I was super excited about that at the time. And at the workout, I ran into some people in the woods at the very end of the night. Some people were camping by me who turned out to be Casey Schneider and Kevin Harris, who had just started Essential Productions. And another thing I'll never forget, that meeting, they were the nicest people ever right off the bat. Incredibly honest, genuine people that, let me know. They were like, hey, man, we just started a promotion company based out of Cincinnati, and you should check out this list of music we have coming up. I look at the list: UV Hippo, The Works, Dopapod, Lotus, Pigeons Playing Ping Pong, and the list goes on. I was just like amazed by it. I was like, these are all bands or DJs that I absolutely love and listen to pretty much every day. And they said, yeah, man, come to Cincinnati anytime you want. If you want to paint, if you want to hang out or promote show, and, we've got a place for you to crash, and, we could all hang out. And it was definitely the catalyst for everything else in my life afterwards. I think once again, the next week, I went to Cincinnati for their Ott show at the Mad Frog. And I was definitely a big Ott fan at the time. And I never got to see him live or anything. It was one of those people that I'd listened to in high school and was like, wow, I'd wonder if I'd ever even get to see this person live. His music's insane. And lo and behold, like hundreds of artists after him, Essential Production had a handle on that feeling exactly of, I'd love to see this band, but I don't know if they're touring in my area or if people would even go, or how many people would go buy a ticket to see this act or whatever. So, I went there, and I'll never forget, I had to leave that night. I was with some friends. We were driving back to Indy after the show, and I called Casey to thank him, for having me out and everything. And I was like, hey, man, just want to let you know I'm heading back home. I'm not going to crash or anything, but just wanted to thank you for having me at the show. And he says, oh, man, like, I'm over here at my house right now cooking eggs. Like, we're hanging out, taking shots. Like, come over and hang out. And I was just, like, blown away by it. I was just like, I just met this guy, and he is, like, ridiculously hospitable. And it must have been, like, 3 a.m. at that point or something. So for him to say, just come hang out, to get met once or twice, was definitely, like, really cool. And he followed up by saying, oh, definitely come, for the next upcoming weeks of shows we have coming up. And I did exactly that. So for the next, couple months, I was going down to Cincinnati, hanging out with those guys and seeing the shows they had coming up, doing anything I could to lend a hand. I was like, you want me to help promote? We were moving chairs out of the venue of the Madison Theater, anything that I could help, load in or load out the bins when they needed help and stuff like that. And I'd say definitely at that point, I started kind of realizing, like, hey, I really like this other side of the music scene too. I don't, the art is incredible, and I love doing that for myself. But I think, after a couple more months or years, I was realizing that the art was something I was exactly just interested in for myself. I wasn't interested in making money from it, being like a cool artist or anything, like nothing really, I had no end goal out of it. I just enjoyed it, and I wanted to see cool shows and paint and stuff like that. So I'd say that was definitely where it started off. I kind of like dove into this weird world of painting and seeing shows, and after a little while, I was transferring from IUPUI to IU, which is Indianapolis to Bloomington. And whenever I moved to IU, I'd say my priorities changed a lot. I was trying to focus a lot more on school. I was still going to shows a lot and painting at home, but I wasn't going out and trying to do the live painting thing much at all, because I just kind of had a priority shift a little bit. And so that led me to the Bluebird. My friend Zaim was promoting for Indie Mojo, which is like our biggest electronic and jam band promoter out of Indiana. And the Bluebird was kind of this this venue that I was always interested in. Even before I'd ever gone there, I'd heard about its history and, you know, the lore of all the crazy acts that they'd have play there over the years, right before they blow up into playing really big venues. And so I was under 21 at the time, so I couldn't go to the Mousetrap. I couldn't go to the Vogue. This is where all the good jam bands were playing in Indiana at the time. And so that's why I was going to Cincinnati so often to see all those bands that would tour the Midwest there, because it was all 18 plus, and I was still so young at the time. So Zaim was, I think, 21 at the time, and he was promoting for Indie Mojo, who was promoting shows at the Bluebird. And so he calls me one day, all excited. He's like, man, I just met the owner of the Bluebird, and I had to pick up posters for Indie Mojo, and you know, I got to tell him a couple bands that I think would be cool to book at the Bluebird, and you got to come in there with me next time because, you know, we could both talk to them and see what we could do to help promote. And I was immediately on board with it. I was super grateful that, you know, he ever brought up the opportunity to me or anything. So I think, yeah, once again, the next week we go in there and we're telling them, you know, these bands are so cool and we need to, you know, get them into Bloomington and all that. And Kubiak, my boss now, is like, all right, man, you know, settle down. I've got some shows coming up and you guys can help promote those, and then we'll go from there. So, yeah, at that point I was still in college, and I was super motivated to do, you know, what I had been so inspired by previously, which is, you know, promote good music and get people out of their houses to see bands that are interesting and unique and touring and, you know, need the support and everything. So, you know, I think, you know, for another year and a half before I was done with school and before I turned 21, I did anything to help that I could. And, yeah. There was a little break there, like winter break came around, and we hadn't promoted a show in a while. And whenever it was, you know, mid-January, and the students were back in town, I was 21 by this point, and I was looking at Uber's calendar. I was like, what's going on here? You know, I want to go see a show. And I noticed that there was a band called Munyon playing that night. And I looked at their promo photo, and I was like, what is this? I've never heard of these guys, but this looks like a jam band. So I looked them up, and they had just released their video of Schwingo. Probably had a couple hundred views or something like that. And I was mind blown. And I was like, these guys are ridiculous. I don't know how or why they're playing the Bluebird, you know, because they seem to be a new band, and they're not from Bloomington. And so I called the Bluebird, and Kubiak answers, and I was like, hey, man, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Pat. You know, I helped promote a bunch of shows last semester, and I saw you have money in tonight. You know, is there anything I can do to help promote the show? And he just said, yeah, man, always need help, man. Always need help. I, like, went into the Bluebird, you know, after that phone call and picked up, like, 200 tickets to the show, and called all my friends, went around to all their houses, dropped off 10 tickets and said, you know, come out to the show tonight. And, yeah, so Munyon hops on stage that night, and they're like, hey, guys, we're Munyon. This is our first show out of Chicago ever, and just played a ridiculous show. And that was probably 2016 as well. And I was like, just everybody who was there is like, you know, a good friend, or friends of ours, and it was just such a memorable night. Everybody approached Munyon after the show to, like, shake their hands and ask them where the hell they came from, and, you know, it was just such a memorable night. And that was, you know, that changed everything immediately for me, and I was like dead set on, you know, promoting music, working at the Bluebird, and yeah, shortly after that I started working with DIZGO, probably like a couple months later.
Wow, man. That is so fucking cool to hear. That is, like, such a dope story. Just, like...
It was really just a ridiculous
man.
chain of coincidental events, really. You know, it was being in the right place at the right time, meeting people that, you know, I just felt a genuine connection with. And, you know, it definitely... I definitely never would have seen it leading to where it has now. So, I'm super
Man,
grateful for
it's
all of
so
that.
fucking cool, like mind blowing, honestly, to think about the ways like something like Essential Productions or like the Bluebird or the Mousetrap can have like such a huge impact on like the way people's like lives develop. And
Oh
you
yeah, I
know,
mean, it changed the course of my life. Hyperion changed the course of my life. Essential Productions changed the course of my life. Papadocio, Fish, all of these things kind of eventually influenced my life to the point that I work in music today, and I couldn't imagine really doing anything else.
and so then 2016 that was, right, that Munyon show, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So then did you get hired on at the Bluebird shortly thereafter?
Yeah, so that might have been either that May or August. I probably graduated from IU, and I was still promoting shows up to the point that I graduated IU entirely for free, just because it was something that you have to get a foot in the door in music, and there was no promotion guy at the Bluebird. There was no marketing guy. There's no social media guy. There's no assistant talent buyer. There was only Kubiak, the owner, and he was our talent buyer, and he definitely over the course of the past couple of years, I credit most of everything that I know about the music scene or what goes on to book an act or make a show happen from him. So really grateful for him taking a chance on me, because right after I was done with school, I was, weighing all my options. I mean, I have a degree. Do I stay in Bloomington? It's a transient town, so as soon as people are done with school here, they move somewhere else. And I wasn't so sure that's what I wanted to do. I kind of fell in love with this town and the Bluebird specifically, and I told Kubiak, I was like, hey, man, I'm done with school. I need to go out and find a job, or I could stay here and work with you. And he obliged, probably against his better judgment. No, I'm just kidding. But, it was like it was a decision I kind of had to make for myself of like, am I going to put my time and my life into this, or am I gonna try and find some whatever options exist elsewhere? And I kind of really felt a connection to this town and this venue, and I'm super happy that I did. I mean, I'm super blessed and grateful to work with both Kubiak and at the Bluebird. Really, really happy still to this day with that situation.
Hell yeah, man. So at the Bluebird, you're the assistant talent buyer, right? So it's been so basically like hundreds of shows, right? Like, what have you specifically done like for these shows?
Yeah. So, like I said, it started out when I was in college, just giving away free tickets to these local up and coming bands, the small touring bands, selling discounted tickets to the bigger ticketed shows, to like shows like Twiddle and the Works. We had that tour probably around the same time, like 2016. And I'll never forget, at the time we sold 100 tickets, for, I don't know, they're a $10 ticket. So I remember like handing Kubiak like $1,000, and I was like, this is my first huge, successful promotion here. Like, I sold 100 tickets to the show. And so it kind of started out with doing that, and then he and I's relationship was always is so casual that we call each other every day, we text each other every day. I go in there every day, and we kind of talk about the strategy of, okay, what do we have coming up? What went well last week? What bombed last week? What can we do to promote this upcoming, at this point, country show or jam band show or cover band show? So at a certain level, I've always been kind of his marketing director, and that trickled down into me doing everything for social media and Facebook, like our advertisements, everything that kind of comes from their agents or band's agents and management, from the day we announce the show to the day the show plays. We come up with a strategy to sell tickets, promote the show, put advertisement money in, find local support, make sure that our production's locked in. If we need lights or light guy, and everything in between. And so I've always had a pretty strong role in doing that, in terms of just, day we announce it to the day of show, making sure that everything is where it needs to be. And outside of that, every date that Kubiak has open and doesn't have an idea for what needs filled, I filled those dates. So, I have probably booked well over 100 shows, hundreds maybe at this point at the Bluebird. And it's a promotion and booking job and production. A lot of the times I'm still coming in to help in with load-ins. If we have a semi or something like that, I'm helping, set up the whole light rig if they need help with that, because I've had so much experience doing that by this point, dealing with their management day of show and the band and stuff like that. Lots of stuff like that. The marketing, the booking, and production side of things. And I guess at this point, I'm also in charge of our street team, so I have probably like 10, 12 people who still help, give away free tickets or sell discounted tickets, promote on social media, all sorts of things like that I coordinate with them. So it's kind of taken on a life of its own. And like I said, there was never a position like that at the Bluebird. It was kind of just a role that Kubiak helped create for me, or a job that he helped create for me.
Well, it definitely sounds like, he struck gold, man. All the different things you're doing. That is super fucking awesome. Definitely, I can relate to your story, man. And it seems like Bloomington's a pretty cool spot to live. I know you said it's a transient place, but it definitely seems like there's some thriving community there.
There absolutely is. There's the people who stick it out and see that magic in this little town, and there's definitely a core group of people who have stayed here longer than I have, lived here longer than I have, obviously, or people who came here around the same time I did and are still sticking around. And I don't know, it's a hard thing to describe, but as far as Indiana goes, there's really no other place like Bloomington. To go along with that, I don't think there's another bar or another venue in the state like the Bluebird.
How so?
There's a level of personality there that I don't think exists many other places, and the staff and everybody who makes that place what it is. And I think Kubiak's history there and legacy there has a lot to do with that, because he did the same thing I did. He came here for school, and that must have been, when he was 20. He's in his 50s now, and he started bartending there, promoting, booking shows across the street in a smaller venue, started working with the owners at the Bluebird and booking and promoting shows, before social media, before the internet and stuff like that. And so he kind of had this monumental role in, since it's such a small town and there's no other theater, the size of the Bluebird. So all the big touring acts that are coming through Indiana, they really have the option of, Indianapolis. Now there's nice venues in places like Fort Wayne and South Bend and other cities like that, but the Bluebird has consistently been the primary, secondary market for Indiana. And all of these big bands that you could see on huge stages, in any major city in the country, are coming to our relatively smaller, more intimate venue that kind of offers the same level of production, or you're going to be able to put on just as great of a show there, but it has such a different feel than your standard just shotgun style rectangular room venue. It has all sorts of different nooks and crannies and different areas of the bar. I mean, I've been there more times than I could ever count, and there's still little things on the walls that I notice for the first time, even to this day. We have all sorts of decorations that have come from all sorts of different places. And it's definitely just something that adds to its charm, that it has this really unique feel to it. And right now, something we're really excited about, we're working on transforming a lot of the bar. We just upgraded the PA to a really nice sound system. We got a bunch of new posters that Kubiak and I are working on putting on all over the bar. We're filling every single wall of the venue with 18 by 24 inch framed posters of everyone who's ever played there, and that list goes along with like Mumford and Sons, Kings of Leon, Bass Nectar, Skrillex, Pretty Lights, anyone you could think of, Eric Church, big country guys, huge country artists, huge EDM artists, big jam bands. The String Cheese Incident played there in 1999. And all sorts of other acts. Humphreys McGee got their start in that room. They used to play the Bluebird every month before they started touring nationally and stuff like that. And those guys definitely I think credit their start to the Bluebird as well, as far as like a place that they could get their chops and grind their teeth in front of an audience. And so that's a really cool little nugget of Bluebird history, that they started playing there on a Monday, opening up for another jam band, and they were so good and so determined that they started coming back every month. And their relationship with the Bluebird or Kubiak is so close that, like, I mean, they still send them a Christmas present every year and a Christmas card every year and stuff. And there's just countless acts that have been through that room, which, like I said, is smaller in size, or feels like smaller in size than all the other bigger venues that they might play. And it's just such a cool connection that exists between the artists, Bloomington as a city, and the Bluebird itself.
So with all the work you're doing, like, it's epic work, but it's definitely like not easy, not hard, like selling concert tickets. I mean, you're in a certain niche where there's like a really, really sweet spot for like demand. But like, what currently maybe are you specifically working on as far as like promoting shows at the Bluebird? Like, what are you looking to improve, or like what's giving you a struggle right now promotionally, or like, because things are constantly changing, like in the way you can promote a show and sell tickets. Like, what's working, or what are you looking to build on, like,
Absolutely.
right now in 2020?
Yeah, I try to definitely strategize different ways that we can promote all our shows, because like I mentioned, we have everything from local bands to cover bands to country acts to EDM shows to jam bands to absolutely everything you could think of in between, indie hipster acts, all of that. So every single different genre of music or different musician in themselves have a different fan base and a demographic and a different group of people that are going to be interested. There's some shows that you might think it's the coolest person you've ever heard of in your life, and there's only a specific demographic of people going to that show. So I guess a lot of our strategy that we try to change is how we're going to approach or reach a different market of people. Are they young college kids? Are they older townies? Are they in between? Are they just middle class 20-something year old people who just live and work in Bloomington? Are their fan base comprised of people who are traveling from out of state? It definitely changes. I mean, we'll have a local band play on any given night on a weekend, and they might have 400 college kids that are totally unique to the next night that we have older country act. And so a lot of the times we are kind of actively looking at, okay, who are their fans and where are they? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Or is this something that's going to be promoted best through, even just their channels alone? And we definitely are looking at, different kinds of ways to use social media because, I mean, as far as selling tickets nowadays to shows, everything's going online. And, even from when I first started, I mean, not even that long ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, selling hard copy tickets or giving away hard copy tickets, we don't really do that as much anymore. As far as as like a promotional tactic, it used to be that if we had hard copies and we got them in people's hands, we knew that would in turn influence somebody else to get theirs. Ticket in hand is a thing that Kubiak's always been super about, as far as like a way to get more people on board and stuff like that. So we kind of changed our formula in a way that for example, now our street team is all using Venmo or just PayPal even, because why have across town or tell a person to come to the Bluebird when they can, send money and we can put them on a list. So that's definitely been like a huge thing that we've kind of changed, and that definitely applies a lot to like younger college demographic of people. So especially like our EDM shows. I mean, for Space Jesus, for example, we just had him here maybe 3 weeks ago, and our street team sold 175 tickets to Space Jesus. It was a $25 ticket. So, I mean,
Wow.
that is really, really good numbers for them to be putting up between, it's probably 6 or 7 of them or something. But I'd say even that, has been something we worked into our promotional strategy. I have a friend who I met in college, Dara Sturgis, who now lives in Colorado, and she helped put together kind of like the guidelines for our street team whenever she was still in college, and helping me promote shows. I kind of asked her to, do that, put together like a task list or guidelines for how you could join and what we'd want you to do if you're on the street team and stuff like that. So really at this point, it's kind of like all those people who were part of the street team when she was around probably already graduated and moved on. There might be 2 or 3 of them that are still around from that time, but that definitely was something that we kind of worked on specifically to reach like a younger demographic of college students, find motivated people just like you or me who are really interested in music and kind of go on the front lines, if you will, kind of, post on social media, text their friends, whatever it takes to, get people to buy tickets and stuff like that. And so that's just one of the things. But another I'd say that has happened recently is that we started a service called Tone Den, which is something I definitely recommend for you guys too at the summit to look into. It's basically Facebook advertising on steroids. There's so much you can do with it, and it's so simple compared to setting up a Facebook advertisement through their platform. And they add all sorts of different ways to target customers, using stuff like pixels, like your Bluebird website pixel and stuff like that to kind of track consumer data as far as, okay, if they bought a ticket to the Space Jesus show, you can retarget that audience to, buy tickets for a Boogie T show or something like that. And, even beyond that, you can use like demographics like Spotify is linked through it. So you can say people that listen to Space Jesus or 30 related artists,
Wow.
put a promotion their way and stuff like that. So I'd say we started that about a year ago, and I've already noticed a huge difference in how effective some of our, paid advertisements are. And so I'd really recommend that as far as like a strategy that we've kind of seen firsthand how much it's helped. And I've definitely talked to like other people like Jason at the Vogue who books there, and he said the exact same thing. Like Tone Dead is revolutionizing the way that you can use like paid advertising for ticket sales.
Hell yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
So that's yeah, and then yeah, everything in between. Like I said, I mean, if it's like a new band or something like that, let's give out a bunch of free tickets. We're constantly thinking of things that are outside the box. 4-packs for ticketed shows. Make 3 tickets for the price of 4. Simple things like that, to kind of help drive ticket sales, because not only are you giving people a discount in that sense, but you're also selling 4 tickets at once versus 1. So there's definitely some tricks that we've kind of been trying to stack to our advantage. Every show we do something different depending on what it is.
Interesting. Yeah, and it seems like you two are definitely like a dual, like the fucking dynamic duo on the shit. Like a team.
Yeah, we are.
That's
it's
fucking
awesome.
cool. Man, wow. What a fucking awesome life. What did you think you'd be doing when you were older, like 15 years ago?
It's a funny question you ask, because I literally have no idea. I have always been kind of a live in the moment kind of person, and I follow my intuition, a lot, and I've always been kind of driven by what feels right, and I was always interested, I think, in media, in like any sort of photo, video, art, music. That was always something I was way more interested in school, or in general outside of school, than anything else. So I kind of saw myself working in a creative environment for sure. My whole life, it was always a goal. And it's funny because my whole life I was kind of trying to like avoid a desk job, and I was like, the last thing I want to do is work in a cubicle. Last thing I want to do is work at a desk. Last thing I want to do is, and my job nowadays is working at my desk. I work from home, 5-6 days a week, but I don't dread it. I don't hate it. I love it. I look forward to it every day. I'm kind of excited. There's some things that I dread, or some things I'm not looking forward to, but that goes along with anything you're gonna do in life. So I'm super happy about it. I definitely don't think that I would have ever saw myself doing music booking or promotion early on or anything like that, but I'm definitely really happy with it.
Hell yeah, man. And so then, 10 years down the road, where do you see yourself?
That's it's definitely a question I've been asking myself a lot lately, especially with being so committed to both DIZGO and the Bluebird. I'm their biggest fan. I definitely would love to see a future in both of those things, wherever that may be or whatever that may mean. But I think overall, I really am a huge fan of the artist manager or booking agent lifestyle, and I really do enjoy it so much. And on the other hand, I'm in love with what I do at the Bluebird. I couldn't imagine not having a venue, like a home like that I could both expand my music industry knowledge, and also have the opportunity to work with and see so many talented artists, from every single range of the spectrum, and not just one genre. Because although I'm like mainly focused in the jam band world, I think overall I am just in love with music, and I listen to every genre of music, and I couldn't see myself not I guess I wouldn't be happy to be in a job where I don't have the opportunity to work hands on with both a venue and the other side, like the artist, and getting to see those shows. So I think in 10 years from now, I really do I really would love to see like a healthy balance of both, booking music, but also working closely with the venue.
Well, it seems like you're basically, it's basically like you found the spot, but it's all about the journey, man. Yeah, this has been fucking awesome. So I want to go back to what we were just talking about with Bluebird marketing. Like, so you're saying things have kind of shifted more to online. You're saying you're talking about using Venmo. I have a question though. Like, there's definitely an opportunity cost to like not doing as much in-person promotions. Like, granted, the way people buy things has changed from when, obviously there's like no cell phones, but, are there still things you're doing? Like, what are you doing in person to promote shows? Like, what kind of in-person promo in 2020 do you think should be done for not just venues, but for local bands promoting the show as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd say there is absolutely a huge area of focus that everyone should put into that, especially I'd say on like more on a local band level than, specifically the Bluebird. One thing that I heard recently that I really like the idea of, that kind of, goes against what you're bringing up, but in general, 1% of your audience is maybe the people that or potential audience is the people that or the friends that they could kind of talk to by word of mouth or whatever. And then the other 99% of that is online, so I think that's why you see such a change or shift in like, bands, having to have so many, I don't know, like so much content, so much, so much relies on putting yourself out there on social media, but at the same time, if you're not out there in person and you're not meeting people, your social media presence is next to zero. You're not going to have any sort of traction there with social media if you're not, out there meeting people, talking to people, and making connections, because that's obviously where you make connections in real life and not behind a computer. So with the Bluebird, I'd say definitely, there's a huge 100% shift, because like I said, I used to be driving maybe 2-3 hours out of the day just to give people tickets that they bought and collect money, and it was ridiculous. It felt ridiculous because it was so many different places you needed to go, and it felt like it could be done easier, and so that's definitely where the shift in promoting via online, and that changed a lot. But with bands, obviously outside of making connections with your fans at your own shows, local bands need to go out and support other local bands, and they need to go to nationally touring bands and meet people in their similar genre. And outside of shows, you should make an effort to make connections with your friends that's you, and their potential friends that you might meet and support you in the future as well. So I don't think that any amount of online promotion without an initial interaction with people in real life is going to take you very far. So I think, especially when you're talking about what a band needs to do to get bigger, I think that promotion stems from an understanding of what you need to do to sell tickets, to gain new fans, to stream your music, your new video is out, you're announcing a new show, you're selling tickets to a show that's this weekend. All of those things, I think, are way better off for you if you have a good relationship with the people in your band and you're meeting in person to strategize all these different obstacles you need to hurdle every day. And I think that's definitely something that you could do over the phone, obviously, but it's not going to be as personal or useful. And I think you get a lot more out of meeting with your fan base, potential fan base, or your crew that you actually promote with in person.
Yeah, man, that is vital. And you definitely see bands that are just like super, invested like socially in the scene definitely tend to be the ones that do better.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. You have to have a you have to have a personality that's likable. I don't think that just keeping your mouth shut and playing music only is going to be the best route. It does work for some people though, I'd say, with really good amounts of talent and support behind you. But I think especially if you're talking about the ground floor, meeting people, interacting with people, forming connections is the only way that you can make it in this industry as like a young band.
Well, now let me ask you this question from a different perspective, though. So, let's say you're an artist approaching music from the studio setting, and you're just as up and coming as any artist might be, but you're really looking to reach fans of your music totally online. Like, how do you get your music circulating, like just straight up Spotify streams or your album? Like, it's crazy to me that when I was younger, like CDs were the thing, and now, like, how do people even get their music out there? Obviously, the easy answer is, well, there's some big corporations like boosting their music through those channels in the mainstream. But like, as DIZGO's manager and someone who works so closely with all these agents at the Bluebird, like, just as far as music made in the studio and getting that out there, like, what kind of like light could you shed on that topic?
I think there's a lot. I mean, it depends on who you are. So a lot of that has to do with what kind of artist you are and what kind of fans you have. It goes back to the demographics thing. I think a lot of these answers in both like ticket sales, promotion, and streams, getting people on board, sharing, like watching your content, everything like that. I think it does stem from finding out exactly who your fan base is. Who are they? What do they like? And how can you reach them? What do they like to do? Do they go to shows? Are they constantly on their computers? Are they in Facebook groups? Are they, who are they? So I think once you identify that, it makes it a lot easier for you to come up with a strategy that's going to promote your content the best. So I think definitely one thing that is really important too is good content. So there's a huge difference in posting a video sometimes from your cell phone versus paying to have it mastered and mixed properly, and also whatever you're adding to that. Are you making it a video? Is it just a song? What type of content it is matters a lot, and what kind of song it is matters a lot. And I think that's why you see a lot of bands. It's something I've really been interested in for a long time is what makes a band's first song like so popular, or their big song. Like, why is it so popular? What is it about the song? Is it the chord progression? Is it the lyrics? Is it the is it just the song structure in general that was so successful, or exactly like how did it become so more well streamed than some of their other content or something like that? So I think if you're talking about jam bands, a lot of it has to do with touring and playing shows and gaining traction or interest in who you are and what that means to your fans. So I think kind of identifying content that is specific to your fan base is important, but it's also very difficult because you don't want to spoon feed. I don't think. I think it's really bad to kind of intentionally sell something versus produce something that's unique and from the heart and totally your own. And I think that there is a fine line of finding that middle ground of it's going to be something that fans are going to be very receptive to, but it's not something that we're doing for fame, or we're doing it for streams, and we're going to make this song this way because it's going to gain traction because it's catchy or something. I think that may work for some people, especially if we're talking about jam bands. We're not, I don't think, talking about that. I think they have a more a fan base that wants to see more originality than they do just surface level hype or catchiness, And so I think it is really important, when you're talking about how you're going to gain just streams or views or likes or whatever you need to do to get your specific piece of content in front of more people. I think you have to take a step back and look at what it is that you're selling and who it is that you're selling to and where the best platform for that to exist is, and even what that looks like. I think that with just the way that the internet works in general too, or social media works, that the way that things go viral, may not even be what you expect it to be, because I've definitely thought about the idea recently or heard people talk about it too, that making something go viral is something that is kind of important for like a young band, to kind of gain new fans and stuff like that, and it's such a huge random word, like how do you make something go viral? It's so vague. But I think there's out of the box ways that you can think of to promote or present your content in a way that it might strike a chord with new potential fans or your existent fans. If you take some time to strategize that well. So I think at the end of the day, for this question in general, I think a strategy of how you're going to market that piece of material is really important, and not just slapping it on MP3 and posting on Facebook and saying, hey, new song, everybody. That might not be the best way for you, or it could be, totally depending on who you are and who your fans are.
Man, I love what you said about spoon feeding and how that fine line exists with originality,
Yeah, it's definitely a very true struggle. You want to do whatever you can to kind of sell your music or get your music in front of more people, but you can't sell yourself. You can't do something that's not you at the same time. So I think there are a lot of really smart songwriters out there, especially in the jam band world, who find that balance. And I think especially looking at some bands like number one songs. I mean, even if you look at bands like Fish, they've been no radio play, for whatever 30 plus years, and their whole fan base is coming from soundboards and stories of how good they are live and everything like that. But you still see them doing certain things in their live set that makes you question if there's more of a strategy than you'd initially think. For example, they'll play their song "Down with the Disease" at the beginning of a second set pretty often, and they'll end a set with Character Zero or encore with it pretty often. And I don't think that's by coincidence in any way, shape, or form. I think they've identified certain elements in some of their songs that are going to work very well at certain parts of their set. And while it's not a stream-based formula or something like that, I think it's something that they do that's kind of tried and true as far as it working in the past. And you can see them still doing that so often that there's something there that you kind of see it might be part of their overall goal as a band of what they're going to present to their fans, or how they're going to do it.
Yeah, man, it's it's an interesting world being an artist. Like you take the fact that whatever you're doing, you were definitely influenced to do it by seeing something similar to it before. So the whole question of originality is so abstract because, really there's nothing new under the sun, they say. So it's like, that things are definitely spun out, maybe literally or metaphysically, from like real things or ideas, but like then from there, next month, where do you go? And then when it turns into being an artist and having it then be a capitalistic venture of how you would, feed your family, it's so interesting, man. And then it's with the internet, it can be so ruthless, especially with fans like craving originality. It's such a edged sword between trying to put things out there that fans will enjoy, and then also stay true to whatever that means, like whatever that means to stay true to being original. But, it's definitely
Absolutely.
a confusing thing.
It is. There's a line you have to walk in a lot of areas of being a band, of what you're gonna present to your fans, or how you're gonna play your show, or how you're gonna release your new song, or what it's gonna sound like. There's so many factors that people don't think about that goes into the thought process behind every move is usually so calculated, or at least I think in the case with like more successful bands, I think a lot more well thought out than people think sometimes.
Well, Pat, man, this has been fucking awesome. I look forward to having you on the Weird Music Podcast again, dog.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I think hopefully next time it might have to be me interviewing you, though.
I'm down. I'm down.
Kidding.
I'd like maybe you interview Salvato too. Yeah, hey, I'm down. We're down. We're down.
Yeah,
Let's make it happen.
I think it's time. The world needs to hear Cam Elkin's side of the story. I'm not kidding.
Shit. Anyways, man, where can we find DIZGO? What you want to tell and any people out there listening who might be around Bloomington looking for shows, like where can the homies keep up with Pat?
Well, if you want anything to do with DIZGO, find them on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify. Hey, they're even on Twitter. Anything you could think of, Bandcamp, and I'm hoping here soon. Don't want to jinx it, but I'm really trying to get those guys on Nugs soon as well. So
yeah,
we'll hopefully see if that's going to happen here shortly. But really looking forward to that. And then myself, you know where to find me, wherever DIZGO's playing, or at the Bluebird, or any combination of the two.
Well, Pat, man, you've got such a fucking awesome story. It's so cool to hear the way, it was just such a passion for you with the art and the music and how it evolved, and different people like Casey Schneider and the EP guys, and then your friend, what's his name again? The owner of the Bluebird, Kubiak.
Kubiak.
Yeah, man. I mean, these people are staples in bringing live music to the community and building up this band.
I would never be in this position today without those people. So if I have anything to say on this podcast, it's thank you to them for sure.
Hell yeah. And to everyone out there being that kind of person in your own way, I mean, Pat, you definitely are. Shout out to all you guys. And if you made it this far, man, hell yeah. This has been the Weird Music Podcast. None other than Pat Milescu. Thanks again, man.
Thank you, Cam. Really appreciate you having me on the show.